having to go to church. I didn't want to have to sit there and give up my time where I could be watching cartoons or something. As a young kid, who wants to do that? But, she kept at it, and, eventually I got to the point where I was old enough to make my own decisions, and I started falling away from church. And I started getting away from my family, who was always trying to push it into me. Then at 13, I started my addiction. I got into drugs. And I started skateboarding and started getting around other people that weren't godly people. At 14 and 15, I started drinking and hanging out with women and doing things that godly kids shouldn't be doing. And I started just breaking away and getting away from that kind of stuff. And I started really getting into the punk scene, and started listening to some really heavy music. There's a word that keeps popping into my head. I don't know if you guys know what it means to mix music and drugs. It's called sorcery. And through sorcery, it releases demons and spells. And that's what was going on in my life. Was the more that I used drugs, the more I listened to music, the harder and deeper I started going into my addiction. From the beginning, the devil tried to keep me down, tried to grab a hold of me and use me for his glory. I'm not here to brag to you guys about what I did in my life. I'm here to give glory to God.
Hallelujah. Yeah. Thank you, Jesus.
I had gotten to the point where smoking pot wasn't enough for me. Drinking wasn't enough for me. I started mixing other drugs in with it. I started getting into cocaine and everything. I would do anything you put in front of me. I didn't care what it was. And I didn't care about the consequences. I wasn't thinking about my family or anybody else that was affected by it. It was about me. Luckily today, that's not me. It's not about me. It's about people that need to hear it and what they can get out of what happened to me. I'm not where I'm at right now where I need to be. Thank God, I'm not where I used to be.
Amen.
Amen.
So by the time I got to high school, I was full-blown into my addiction, into the punk scene and harder music. And it really changed me. It changed who I was. From that innocent little boy to get out of my way or I'm going to bust you up kind of person. I didn't like being told what to do. My theory was always to question authority, not to do what I was told to do. So after high school, not only was I doing drugs, drinking, and running around with women, but I'd also began to sell drugs. And that took me to places where normal human beings shouldn't end up, man. Back alleys in Baltimore and just crazy places. Put me in situations that were compromising my life. Not only compromising my life, but also compromising what I could have had with Jesus. But I don't feel that it was in vain that I went through this. Because, yeah, it was a tragedy that I went through this, that I could have lost my life many times. But because of it, I may have the chance to save someone else's life.
Amen.
Hallelujah.
And that's pretty much what I want to focus on, is not what I did, but what I can do. Because of what I went through, I have the opportunity to talk to others that were like me. Because of what the Lord allowed me to go through, I can walk into places where normal Christians can't walk into. I can go into bars and be accepted and have that open door enough to get to them and tell them about what happened to me, and hopefully change them to take them to the same path. There was a couple times that I overdosed. I've had guns pointed in my face. I got stabbed once. Luckily, it wasn't enough to do real damage, but it was enough to, it kind of opened up my eyes a little bit. But I continued on doing what I was doing because I didn't care. I had gotten to the point where life didn't matter anymore. The fact that I had a daughter didn't matter anymore. And the fact that I had people around me that cared didn't matter anymore. So I just kept going deeper and deeper into my lifestyle. Until one day, my brother and my nephew came over, and they were telling me about this church that they went to, and come on, man, you got to go check this place out, and and I was like, nope, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I don't need that. So I continued doing what I was doing. I continued selling. I continued using. I woke up in the morning because I was also selling what I was using. It allowed me to do as much as I wanted for the day. So I'd wake up and I'm going to use terms that only drug users and addicts know, but hopefully you understand what I'm saying. I would get up in the morning and I would break up an ounce of pot on a tray. And I would not go to bed until every last crumb was off that tray. That's a lot of pot, man. And it wasn't just pot that was on top of Coke. I was doing 2 8-balls of Coke a week. And that was on top of whatever else I felt like getting into that day. I usually threw alcohol into the mix. I had gotten to a dangerous level of drug use. It was not only destroying my life, but it was also destroying my mind and my heart, and it just hardened me. But like I said, my brother and my nephew came over, and they wanted me to come check out this church. And they hounded me for weeks. Weeks.
Amen.
And finally one day, I was like, you know what? Just to get you off my back, I'm going to go. I will go. So I made the choice that I was going to go, but that's all. I wasn't going to do anything else. I was just going to satisfy them and go back to doing what I was doing. So my nephew said, we're going to come pick you up at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Be ready. I was like, all right, I'll give up a few hours of my drug use to satisfy you guys. I'll go. And the morning they showed up to get me, I don't know, well, I do know what happened, but I don't know what happened at the time. Devil made me sick as a dog, man. I could not stand up. I felt like I had the flu, and I was just nauseous. And my nephew was like, come on, man, let's get going. I was like, I can't go. I couldn't even stand up. I was just so sick, man. And he told me that no matter what, 11 o'clock he's coming back to get me. He doesn't care if I'm sick or not. We're going. So we went. And like I said, my idea of what was going to happen wasn't what God had in mind for me. So we got there, and there's this little cat running around in the parking lot, and I tried to pet it. It wasn't nothing to do with me. It just ran away from me and stayed away from me. And I didn't really think that was odd because, you know, it's a cat and I'm not really a cat person. Maybe he sensed that, I don't know. But I finished up my cigarette and went inside. And as soon as I walked through those doors, it was like the devil had his hands off me just long enough for God to grab a hold of me.
Hallelujah.
And I felt a change happening inside me. And I agreed that I would take on the whole experience of going to church. I'd let them pray for me and all that stuff, but as soon as I leave them, I'm going back to my drugs. That's pretty much what I had in my mind. And so the service was over and we went down. I allowed the pastor to pray for me, and I gave myself to Christ that morning. But to me, that meant that I could still go back and continue doing my drugs. Just I'm supposed to be a better person now. And a little while later, they started talking about going to this place in Indiana called Whitehorse. It's a massive church, and hundreds of people go there every day, on top of the hundreds of thousands of people that would visit there weekly. And they wanted me to go with them, and I had this excuse that I didn't have the money, so that excluded me. And obviously that wasn't the Lord's plan either. And my nephew called me up about a week before we were supposed to go. He goes, "All right, man, we're leaving this coming Thursday, so make sure you're packed up and ready." I was like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "No, we got this conference to go to." I'm like, "No, I'm not going to no conference, man. I don't have the money." He goes, "I knew you'd say that. It's already been paid for." I was like, "Oh, man."
Oh, no.
So when we left that morning, I only had, it was probably like 8 cigarettes, maybe not even that many. I can't remember how many was in a pack, but I didn't have a full pack. So every time we'd stop, I'd, puff a couple, put it out, and put it back in my pack. So by the time we got to Indiana, I only had like 1 cigarette left. And I had no hopes of getting any more. But I had a couple people on the bus that was with us that were smokers, so I figured I'd just bum off them. And they got super mad because I kept bumming my brother and my nephew. They were getting mad because I was supposed to be giving them up. I was going to quit. Kept saying I was going to quit, but never did. So I approached this one guy that I saw smoking and asked him for a couple cigarettes, so he gave me a couple. And I continued bumming off of him for the rest of the day. And he came up to me later on. He's like, "Look, man, I only brought so much for this trip, and I can't really afford to continue giving you cigarettes. I'm not going to have it for the rest of the weekend." So he handed me 2 cigarettes and said, "That's all I can give you." So it came over me to make that step and ask the Lord to help me with this. So I was approached and they said, "We're going to order pizza, we're going to read the Bible, and then we're going to go to bed." And I agreed to that, even though I really didn't want to. I didn't have experiences with the Bible, and to me that was just another step of giving myself into it, and I didn't want it. Even though I agreed to give myself to the Lord, I didn't really want to do what it took to further myself in that. So before we ate and read the Bible, I stepped outside to smoke a cigarette, and I took that opportunity to speak to the Lord. And I told him that if he didn't change my life, if he didn't take my addiction away from me, that I was never going to step in another church. I was never going to read the Bible ever again. If he didn't show up and do this for me, he can forget about it. I was going to take my life back, and that was that. Finished. So went inside and we had the pizza and we studied the Bible for a little while. And then I went back outside to finish my last cigarette. I said, this is it, Lord. I mean it. If you don't show up and do something in my life, show me that you're real, I'm finished. I'm walking away. I'm never coming back. Don't send anybody my way. Don't talk to me about nothing. I'm done. And I finished my last puff and I threw it to the ground and said, that's it. Ball's in your court. Do what you want. So I went back inside and we went to bed. And my favorite thing in the morning is that first cigarette and a cup of coffee. And I woke up and started drinking my coffee, and I was like, something's not right today. Something's a little different. And I couldn't quite place my finger on it. And then I realized that what was missing was that want for a cigarette. And I was like, no way. No way did he just do that. So I thought maybe it was just, I didn't know what to think, but I didn't think that he'd actually answered my prayer and that he was going to do what he said he was going to do. And one of the things that I wanted him to do was to make me feel sick to my stomach when I smelled cigarettes. That was one of my signs. So we were staying in a hotel, and across the road was the church that we were going to. And on my way from the hotel to the church, I ran into the guy that was giving me cigarettes. And he's like, hey man, did you finish up those cigarettes? I was like, yeah. He goes, you want another one? And as he asked me if I wanted another one, his smoke came into my face, and I got sick as a dog to my stomach. And I was like, whoa, what just happened here?
God is good.
And I was like, oh man, he did it. Now I have to do my part.
That's right.
And this fear came over me that I was now accountable for what I said. So we went over to the church and went through worship, and normally I'd be sitting in the back row watching everybody else do what they were doing. But I got pulled to the front of the church where everybody else was worshiping. I couldn't sit back there. Something within me was not letting me. So I don't even know what happened. I just fell on my face. It was like I got pushed over, and I had no choice but to give God glory for what he did for me.
Amen.
So church was over, and I ran into that guy again. He's like, dude, you want a cigarette? I'm like, no, I don't. Get away from me. I'm not feeling good, man. Just get away from me. And finally I got back over to the hotel room, and I was just baffled that what I had said created an effect in me, and that the Lord was actually doing what He told me He was going to do. So we got through the weekend, and on the way home, I told my pastor that I quit smoking cigarettes. And he's like, "How long has it been?" I was like, "I haven't had one since Saturday, I think it was." He's like, "Wow, that's great. Let me pray for you." So he began praying for me, and one of the other brothers that was passing by heard what was going on. And he's like, you haven't had any cigarettes at all since, I guess it was Friday night. And I was like, "No, none at all." He goes, "All right, well, that's good enough for me." And he began to pray for me. And I had probably about 2 or 3 other people join in on that. So it was like them praying for me sealed the deal that was done. And so we got back to the church, and I ended up spending the night there at my brother's house and my nephew's house. And the next day I went home, and I had left a couple of cigarettes laying on my bar where I was selling my drugs off of. And I was like, "Man, I think I can smoke one more and I'd be happy with that." And so I picked one up and I bumped the pole and it snapped it in half. I was like, "Oh, man, no way." So I threw it in the trash and I picked it up and I went to light it, and I didn't see it bump anything, but it snapped in half too.
Oh.
And picked up the third one, and same thing, snapped in half. I was like, "All right, I get it. I get it." And at that time, I felt like if I went back to my addiction, if I started drinking, if I started smoking cigarettes, whatever it was, I'd die in my addiction. I didn't audibly hear that, but I felt it in my spirit that the worst thing would come upon me if I went back to it. So now it's been almost 6 years. It really doesn't feel like it. And one of the miraculous things that I've noticed when I got home, that I didn't have any wants. I didn't feel that craving. Withdrawal from coke alone should have put me in the hospital. But I didn't have any of it. Like, it was completely wiped clean. Like it had never even happened.
Amen.
So I don't know who needed to hear that today. But, you know, addiction isn't just drugs. It's anything that turns you away from God. For me, yeah, it was drugs, but it could be something different for anybody else. So I feel led to tell you the scripture, Acts 11:12. They overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, by the power of the testimony, and they didn't care for their lives unto death. We're not in this alone. We have each other, and we've got God. So at this time, if anybody needs prayer for anything, come on up here and we'll pray for you.
I wanted to get you to keep the mic. I want you to bring up one more thing that we were talking about that night to share with them, because it's going to speak into the hearts of those who are faithfully witnessing. Tell them about the
Street preacher.
The street preacher.
Well, after high school, there was a street preacher, and he always stood on Main Street, and he was always preaching to people passing by. He was there every day, whether it was raining, snowing, or sunshine. He didn't care. He was out there. And he stopped me one day, and he wanted to talk to me about Jesus, and I blew him off. I was like, man, just get away from me. I don't want to hear that crap. Just get away from me. So the next day I knew he was going to be there, and I had brought along my jam box that was blaring Ozzy Osbourne. And I had my snake with me, and I threw it on him. And I cranked Ozzy Osbourne up as he just kind of stood there looking at me. He didn't even react. And before he tried to talk to me, I had seen him every day in that same spot for months. And I feel like he was trying to talk to me, not to someone else, but he was there for me. And after I got saved, I saw him walking along the road, and I pulled my car over and I told him that I had gotten saved, and I apologized to him. Amen. And he told me he didn't need to apologize to me. I was already forgiven. And I told him what I had done. He's like, oh, yeah, I remember you. I remember you. It's all right. I knew why you did that, and you're forgiven.
Amen.
And you can still see him walking around Waynesboro right now, trying to talk to others. He's faithful. He is out there, and he's always willing to talk to you. I never found out his name, but you'd know if you saw him. He's just got this glow about him. But he's always out there doing what he does, no matter what.
Jay, worship team, come on up. Again, if you need to go because of weather, go ahead. But we're just going to open up questions, but I want you to do this. It's time to quit playing games. It's time to get real. Just like the cigarette story, some of us are holding on to things that, God is a loving God. God loves us enough to say, if you, just like a child addicted to something, if you don't, like, my grandmother told me right towards the end when things were getting really dark, my grandmother was so loving, didn't say a word, and she said, boy, you better straighten up. I said, Grandma? That's not Grandma. And it's time to get right. It's time to get real. There's all kinds of struggles, as he mentioned. Come up front. Ask him how he got through it. Talk to him. Come pray with him. If there's more than one, we'll come up and pray with you. Dave, be ready. Tracy, be ready. But come up and say, man, I'm struggling with this. I want to be set free from this particular thing in my life. Church, let's be real. We're here for each other. It's time. I'm going to admit, a few years back, I was addicted to pornography as a Christian. All right? And I had to humble myself and get real so I could be set free. I'm taking the lead right here. I'm getting real. I'm struggling. I need to fast on where I'm struggling with sugar. I'm just being real. Come up and share. Let's pray. Let's worship the Lord. And pray for people to come up and get real and to be set free. And be faithful. Be committed, just like that street preacher, man. I just want to tell you. You know what was happening when he threw that snake on that street preacher? You know what? The ricochet of the Holy Spirit came back on you, brother. Which you meant for harm, the Lord meant for good, because the grace of God poured back on you through that street preacher, through him and the other people, and your brother and your nephew that reached out to you. You came to that place. Be faithful, be committed, and come and be set free this morning. Be set free.
There is power in
you can trust it, just grab a friend. Somebody you can pray with about something. Lift it up to the Lord.
Break